This morning, I woke up to the sound of rain tapping against the window. It wasn't heavy, just a gentle, steady sound. You know, the kind that makes you want to stay in bed a little longer? That's exactly what I did. The room felt cozy, and the rain outside made everything seem so peaceful. I could hear the soft patter on the roof and the occasional drip from the gutter. It's funny how something as simple as rain can change the mood of a day. Looking out the window, I saw droplets rolling down the glass. They moved so slowly, joining together before sliding down. The sky was gray, but it wasn't gloomy. It was more of a soft, calming gray. Mornings like these remind me to slow down. There's no rush, no loud noises outside, just the rain. It's the kind of day where you can take your time and enjoy the little things. After lying in bed for a while, I finally got up and went to the kitchen. On a rainy morning like this, the first thing that comes to mind is making something warm to drink. For me, it's usually coffee, but sometimes I'll go for tea or even hot chocolate if I'm in the mood. I grabbed my favorite mug. It's not fancy, just a plain one, but I've had it for years. While the kettle was boiling, I stood by the window for a moment, watching the rain. The drops were bouncing off the pavement and forming little puddles on the sidewalk. Once the coffee was ready, I poured it into the mug and held it close just to feel the warmth. There's something about holding a hot drink on a cold, rainy day that feels so comforting. I took a sip, and for a moment, I just stood there, enjoying the quiet. Outside, everything looked a bit different. The colors were softer, the green of the trees, the gray of the road. It all seemed calmer. Rain has a way of slowing things down, doesn't it? It makes you want to take your time, maybe sit by the window and just enjoy the moment. Later in the day, I thought about going outside. There's something nice about walking in the rain, especially if it's not too heavy. I grabbed my umbrella, put on a jacket, and stepped outside. The air felt cool and fresh, with that earthy smell you only get when it rains. As I walked down the street, I could hear the sound of water splashing under my shoes and the occasional car driving by, spraying water from the puddles. The sidewalks were shiny, reflecting the gray sky and the lights from nearby windows. Some people don't like being out in the rain, but I think it can be really peaceful. Everything feels quieter. Even the usual noise of the city fades a little. I passed by a small park, and the trees looked so green, their leaves sparkling with tiny drops of water. I didn't go far, just a short walk around the neighborhood. But it felt nice. It's one of those simple things that makes a rainy day more enjoyable. And of course, by the time I got back home, my shoes were a bit wet, but it was worth it. After I got back from my walk, I started to feel a little hungry. Rainy days always make me think of comfort food, something warm and filling. I decided to make a simple bowl of soup. There's just something about soup on a rainy day, isn't there? It's like it was made for weather like this. While I was chopping vegetables, I could still hear the rain outside. It was steady, creating a nice background sound. I turned on the stove and let everything simmer, and soon the kitchen was filled with that comforting homemade smell. While the soup was cooking, I thought about other foods that go well with rainy days. Maybe a fresh loaf of bread, still warm from the oven, or something sweet like cookies. I didn't have time for baking today, but even the thought of it felt cozy. When the soup was ready, I sat by the window with my bowl and watched the rain. The steam from the soup rose up, fogging my glasses for a second. I smiled to myself. There's something so satisfying about enjoying a warm meal while it's cold and wet outside. After lunch, I sat on the couch with a blanket, and I just listened to the rain for a while. It's amazing how relaxing that sound can be. The gentle rhythm of raindrops hitting the roof, the soft splash of water in puddles, it's almost like nature's own music. I started thinking about why rain is so soothing. Maybe it's because it's consistent. The sound doesn't rush you or demand your attention. It just flows. Some people even use recordings of rain to help them focus or fall asleep. I can see why. It has this way of calming your mind. Outside, I noticed water dripping from the edges of the roof. It would gather at one spot, and then, after a few seconds, fall in a single drop. Watching that kind of thing feels almost meditative, just noticing small, simple details. I didn't feel like turning on the TV or looking at my phone. Sometimes it's nice to just sit quietly and enjoy the moment. The sound of the rain filled the room, and I let my thoughts wander. It was one of those moments where you feel completely present, just enjoying the now. While I was sitting there listening to the rain, I started thinking about when I was a kid. Rainy days back then were so different. I remember how excited we used to get when it rained. It wasn't something to avoid. It was a chance to play. We'd run outside in our raincoats and boots, splashing through every puddle we could find. Of course, our parents weren't always thrilled about the wet clothes and muddy shoes, but we didn't care. Jumping in puddles felt like the best thing in the world. I also remember watching the rain from the window, pressing my nose against the glass and tracing the raindrops with my finger. I'd sit there for what felt like hours, just following the trails they made. It's funny how something so simple could be so entertaining. Sometimes there would be thunderstorms, and those were a bit more dramatic. I'd count the seconds between the lightning and the thunder, trying to figure out how far away the storm was. It was a little scary, but also exciting. Rainy days as a kid always felt like a little adventure. Even if we couldn't go outside, we'd find ways to make it fun, building forts, playing board games, or just listening to the sound of the rain. It's nice to think back on those times and remember how magical something like rain could feel. Thinking about those childhood memories made me realize how much my rainy day activities have changed over the years. These days, a rainy day feels more like a chance to slow down and enjoy simple things. One of my favorite things to do is curl up with a good book. There's something about hearing the rain outside while you're lost in a story that makes it even more relaxing. If I'm not in the mood to read, I might watch a movie, something light and comforting, like an old favorite I've seen 100 times. Sometimes I'll use the time to write in a journal. Rainy days have this way of making you feel reflective, don't they? I'll write about things I've been thinking about lately or just jot down whatever comes to mind. Of course, there are days when I don't feel like doing anything at all. I'll just sit on the couch with a blanket, sip on tea or coffee, and enjoy the sound of the rain. No plans, no distractions, just a quiet moment to myself. It's funny how rain can change the pace of a day. When the sun is out, it feels like there's so much to do, but when it rains, it's like the world is giving you permission to take it easy. I think that's why I look forward to rainy days. They're an excuse to slow down and do the things I enjoy most. Rain has this way of making you feel nostalgic, doesn't it? There's something about the sound, the smell, and the slower pace that brings back old memories. Sometimes memories you haven't thought about in years. I found myself thinking about past rainy days. Some of them were simple, like sitting by the window with a cup of tea. Others were more memorable, like being caught in the rain unexpectedly. I remember one time when I didn't have an umbrella, and by the time I got home, I was completely soaked. It wasn't fun in the moment, but now I laugh when I think about it. Rain can also remind you of people. Maybe it's someone you used to share rainy days with, like a friend or a family member. I thought about my grandmother and how she used to make the best soup on rainy days. The whole house would smell amazing, and we'd sit together at the table listening to the rain while we ate. It's strange how rain can feel both happy and a little sad at the same time. It's not a bad kind of sadness, though. It's more like a quiet reminder of things that matter, things that have shaped who you are. On days like this, I think it's nice to let yourself feel a little nostalgic. It's like the rain gives you permission to pause and look back for a while before moving on to whatever comes next. Thinking about the rain always brings back memories of traveling in different places. Rain feels different depending on where you are, doesn't it? I remember once being in a big city when it started to rain. The streets were packed with people, and suddenly, umbrellas popped up everywhere like mushrooms after a storm. It was chaotic, but kind of beautiful at the same time. The reflections of lights on the wet pavement made the whole city look alive in a completely different way. Then there was the time I visited a small coastal town. It rained almost every day I was there, but it didn't bother me. The rain felt softer, and the sound of it blending with the waves was so calming. I spent most of my time just walking around in a raincoat, taking in the quiet atmosphere. Of course, not all rainy travel stories are relaxing. I've been caught in a downpour without an umbrella more times than I'd like to admit. One time, I was at a train station, waiting for what felt like forever, drenched from head to toe. It was uncomfortable in the moment, but now it's one of those funny stories I always tell. Rain has a way of making every place feel different, whether it's a busy city or a peaceful village. It can turn an ordinary trip into something memorable, even if it's not always convenient. Looking back, some of my favorite travel moments happened on rainy days. By the evening, the rain was still coming down, though it had softened into a light drizzle. I turned on a small lamp in the living room, the kind that gives off a warm, cozy glow, and sat by the window again. There's something special about ending the day with the sound of rain in the background. I decided to wind down with a bit of music. Nothing loud, just something soft and relaxing to match the mood of the evening. The rain seemed to blend with the music, creating this perfect atmosphere. It was the kind of moment where you feel like everything slows down and you can just breathe. Looking outside, the streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, and tiny ripples formed in the puddles with each drop of rain. It reminded me of how beautiful even the simplest things can look when you take the time to notice them. Before going to bed, I made one last cup of tea. As I sipped it, I thought about how the rain had stayed with me all day. From the quiet morning to the peaceful evening, it had set the tone, reminding me to slow down and appreciate. Subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to keep learning and improving your fluency with more daily conversations, natural speech, and listening practice.